This is Metal Mike, and in this episode of the 80's Glam Metalcast, we talk to roadie turned author Joel Miller. We discuss his book, The Memoir of a Roadie. Axl Said I Made a Great Cup of Tea. Scott Weiland Liked the Carpenters, and Ozzy Drinks Rosé. Quite a title, right? It's got some great inside tales about those artists and some glam metal acts like Poison and Quiet Riot. You gotta check this thing out. Well, Joel, welcome to the 80's Glam Metalcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Thank you.
Well, hey, the book is The Memoir of a Roadie. Axl Said You Made a Great Cup of Tea. Scott Weiland Likes Carpenters, and Ozzy Drinks Rosé. That's quite a title.
A bit of fun, right? A bit of fun.
Well, man, hey, I read the book. It was a great read. I mean, there's all kinds of details about what went on, on the road and everything. Did you keep a journal or something on the road?
That's exactly what I did. So basically, I had come home and I had a bit of money from per diem, and I bought a laptop computer. And with my new toy, I kind of was thinking of what I could do with it. So I could get on AOL and talk in chat rooms, but I didn't really know too much. I could watch a DVD in my hotel room, but thinking along those lines of what can I do with this new toy, I just began to keep a daily journal of what was going on when I was touring. And so I started it when I was just starting out with STP, and I kind of liked it, so I kept doing it.
That's awesome, man. Well, there's a lot of fascinating pieces of the book, but a big one I thought was when you were working for GNR. And one cool part is it kind of starts off and you find yourself in the storage, like rehearsal space. Tell everybody what kind of relics you were coming across in those cases there. Okay,
so yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the whole book because I just geeked out. And I'm actually an art dealer now, which I don't talk about in the book, but it's my profession is selling. It was art. Now it's a lot of also music and film memorabilia. So it kind of gives backstory of, I still had that same interest level for stuff. And so I was in the storage facility for Guns N' Roses with another guy working for the band. And we just I always do it when I start working for a new band, or used to do it. And you go through the storage to see if there's any stuff you can use in the future, expendables. And so we were pulling everything out, and nobody had been in there for a long time. And there was a case at the back of the room, and I couldn't roll it out, but it was clearly a wardrobe case. A wardrobe case is taller, and it looks like you would hang. It looks like a wardrobe in a bedroom. And I don't really care about that stuff. I'm not wardrobe or costume, so whatever. So I left it there because I couldn't pull it so easy. And once we had the whole room empty, I went back to it just to make sure it did just have wardrobe in it. And I don't know, maybe honestly, between you and me, as a fan, maybe I did just want to see what was in every case.
Sure.
And when I opened it up, because you don't know, and I mean, I'm a really big Guns N' Roses fan, and so I opened it up, and it's just this nauseating smell of funk, of Guns N' Roses funk, which is strong funk. And it was all the leathers that the band had worn for the Appetite for Destruction tour, and I froze in place, just good God. And the other guy I was with had come back into the room, and he's like, dude, he told me what I was looking at, and I was just mesmerized. So I wanted to get the case outside with everything else anyway. I was going to restructure everything and kind of put everything in a way where I knew where everything was. And I looked under to see why it wouldn't roll, and there was a piece of black fabric. And so I pulled it out, and I was able to roll the case out. And I looked at the fabric, and I just figured I'd open it up and just see if, honestly, I was thinking, what could be inside of it? I don't know. But I was assuming it was just extra backdrop stuff, crap,
Yep.
And as I opened it to have a better look, it was the Appetite for Destruction backdrop, and I was literally just crying with laughter with how exciting my life was. It was just the neatest thing, and then the fact that I had found it scrunched up underneath the case in the back of storage was just so amazing to me. Spellbinding is the word I can think of. I don't know why, but I like that word. But crazy. I was so happy I could now preserve this by putting it in a better place. And but that being said, it was in great condition. It was really pretty good because no one ever went into the storage. And for all I know, it's still wherever I left it.
So now once the band comes to rehearse, you're realizing this isn't the old school Guns N' Roses that you fell in love with in 1987. This is an all-new lineup now with Axl.
Yeah, I kind of knew a little bit before I started working for them that it wasn't going to be Slash and Duff and those guys. So I didn't quite know. And I was a little tiffed, or not tiffed. I was a little bummed because I'm a fan. I was really excited to maybe see all of them, but I quickly changed my idea to be like, well, this is the closest I'm ever going to get to working for my favorite band, and maybe it'll be cool. And so when I started working for them, it was pretty cool. Bruyne is an incredible drummer, and Buckethead is in a league of his own, and Robin is a pretty funky guitar player. It was fun. It was a good opportunity, and I never thought Guns would ever get together from that lineup. So the fact that most of the guys are playing together now is amazing to me. But I never ever thought it would ever happen.
Isn't that crazy? So, I always think the same thing, because I never thought Guns N' Roses would get back together, and I'm a huge Kiss fan, and I always thought Kiss would never get back with the original guys because all they ever did was talk shit about each other. And I guess at the end of the day, as fans, sometimes we're naive, but I guess it's all about money, right? Sometimes when the money runs out,
money talks, my friend. Money talks, man. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it is, because the people that you've gone through life and you don't get along with, why would you try to talk to them again? There's enough other people out there. Why would you care?
Right.
So there's one reason, and it's, man, that divorce was expensive, or whatever, whatever it is. I'd like to think as a fan, it's just people who are like, man, we made some great stuff. We should overcome this.
Yep.
But, a lot of us guys are tough. Whether we're right or wrong, we're hard to deal with. So, but I'm glad, as a music fan, I'm glad, and I believe they're doing a new album, so we'll get to hear what it sounds like, and I'm going to be one of the first guys listening to it. So
it's mentioned in the title of your book, and this is actually something that happens. Axl had a dude that worked for him that just made his tea, right? Or he was going to go over to Brazil and make his tea for him. So was he kind of a diva? That's what he kind of comes across in the book.
The tea guy? No, man.
No, it's Axl.
the tea guy was not a diva, just jeans and a sweatshirt kind of fella.
How was Axl a diva?
Axl. I don't know. I don't really know. So, I'm careful what goes into this line, because at the end of the day, I'm a fan.
Right.
And what I say to people, and I don't know if I said it in the book or not, but I was getting paid to do a job. I was getting paid to do a job, and it happened to be from a favorite band. So if you don't like your job, bail, quit, leave, go get another gig, man. And so people were telling me how much of a nightmare he can be, and there was definitely a fear factor, but he was okay. With all that being said, the dude picked up a guitar one day, and naively, I didn't actually know he knew how to play guitar. He was pretty good. And so I'm watching this guy play instruments and stuff as a fan, and he overcame any little issues that you and I could drum up to make an interesting conversation by being such an accomplished musician and really filling the shoes of what a fan like me wanted to see. So I didn't see too much diva stuff. There definitely was some. We talk about he fired me for picking up the phone when it was really loud in the recording studio. Who's that moron? Fire that guy.
Right.
So, I don't know. And then, the tea fella, I'm not really sure. I never really talked to the guy. I don't know if it was Axl's buddy who he was hooking up. If so, hats off to Axl, or if his job really was he was this, hardcore tea making guru from some special place on earth. I don't know. But yeah, I'll tell you a good one. So I'm pretty friendly with Dizzy, and so I hit him up. I'm like, I've done this book and whatnot, and if you could throw me a quote was really why. And he's, well, what's your book called, dude? I'm like, it's called Axl Said I Made a Great Cup of Tea. He's like, what? I'm like, well, yeah, man. I mean, I only had so many conversations with him. And two of those conversations were, Axl said, hey, dude, can you make me some tea? And I said, yeah. And then later, he said to me, that was some good tea. So he's like, wouldn't that be like one conversation? and I'm like, no, man, it was over the whole night. So it's clearly two conversations. He goes, you can't come up with a better book title than that? and so I was like, all right. And so I extended the book title a bit. But initially, that's all it was. It was Axl Said I Made a Great Cup of Tea.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So during this book, the majority of your journey is spent when you were on the road with STP. That was basically your first time as a roadie. And it's pretty awesome because it's kind of like you're truly figuring this all up as you go.
I completely am. Yeah, I was, to go into the quick story, my father was a car mechanic. Guy comes in to get his car fixed. Guy says, hey, do you go work for STP? I think the guy's full of crap. A few days later, I'm on a plane going to Vegas to work for this band called STP. And, yeah, you couldn't be any greener. He didn't tell me anything about anything. I brought what I normally wore, which was blue jeans and a white T-shirt. And so I'm on stage for the first couple shows, A, not knowing what I'm doing, and B, really looking like I'm not knowing it either, because roadies don't wear white T-shirts. And so everything was a learning curve. And I'm recording the audio book right now, so I'm going through it extensively. And it's really quite clear how afraid I am of just getting fired.
Right.
And I just didn't want this cool little trip to end, because at the end of the day, I was a little unsure why they were hiring me. There could have been somebody who had done this before, who was a little more competent. But I don't think they could have hired somebody with a bigger heart who wanted it all to work. Right. And I think, now as a quote-unquote adult, I think that's why they kept me around. I'm really glad that they all did.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's one point where you talk about with that first tour, you lose a road case, and then you almost get fired, but you don't. And I think it is. I think you're a likable character, and I think that's why they like to have you on there. I think, also, like you said, you were working hard, you had a good heart. But some of us, let's face it, in life, it's all a people game, right? You do business and you work with people that you like. If you were a prick or whatever, they probably would have said, see ya, but I think it is.
They would have. They fired so many people. You know what? I learned I was pretty good at running a crew, which was a really big deal. So I could deal with the people's different personalities coming and going every day, showing the stagehand some respect so they actually work hard. And that I was pretty good at. That helped keep me on board. And then I point out, the character Caesar in the book, who's my big boss guy. Yep. I flat out asked him, and these are pretty much verbatim conversations. Why didn't you fire me, dude? And it was because I saw all these other people coming and going, why'd you keep me? And he says it. He says it's because you wanted to work in music, and I wanted to give you the chance. So, but with that being said, when he told me I'm never giving you another chance, I think that was true. I really do. Mm-hmm. I know he would have fired me. So I wasn't going to let that happen. And I became very serious about the job, and I think I climbed the ladder pretty quick, and I did pretty good.
Definitely, man. As I got reading this, I do. I think you're a great storyteller. I enjoyed the sarcasm and wit. You kind of sound like somebody, you kind of talk the way my friends and I would all talk to each other back in the day. And this kind of whole process just keeps drawing you in. You get an inside look at what's going on behind the scenes in the rock world. And for those guys like me, I played in bands when I was a young kid. I toured around a little bit, and never to the scale of, obviously, the bands that you worked with. But it kind of brings you back to those days, because there were always those colorful characters, when it comes to road people and going to the gigs. There was always the guy that owned the club that was an asshole or crazy, or I kind of felt like I was back into my old days when I was a teenager, when I used to play in bands and stuff. So it all felt very familiar to me.
Well, I'm really glad, because to me that's a feather in the hat. It's the biggest compliment you could give me, and I genuinely appreciate it. What I wanted to achieve was this, how I tell the stories always, which is over a beer. and you and I are just sitting in the bar drinking a beer, and I'm telling the stories. That's how it's written. Yeah. And then the second part is, times are tough. I didn't know that we were going to have this crazy year, but times are tough. And the hope was that you would laugh a little bit. If you laughed out loud once, or even if you giggled a little, that's what I wanted. I wanted people to have a bit of fun. You and I we remember so well that first record that we got and we picked up, and we're like, damn, I get to listen to this all night long.
Yep.
And it's that love of music. It's the passion that keeps you doing what you're doing, and made me want to try and write my book. And I still, and I'm sure you do too. There's music like, how could I have never heard of these guys? This is so awesome. and you get all giddy. I remember Blind Melon, I don't know, it's probably 12, 13 years ago now. I called Dizzy and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And he's like, what? I'm like, how could you never tell me how good these guys are, dude? And I was mad at him. I was seriously mad. He goes, yeah, they're great. I'm like, you should have told me this, man. I thought we were friends.
So it happens. Sometimes there's just these bands that come out of nowhere. Like, how did I miss them? But, glad that we found them eventually, for sure.
Yeah, it's so exciting, though. It keeps you listening, and it's great stuff, yeah.
So two guys, you mentioned Caesar. So it was Nigel and Caesar. These are kind of like your roadie mentors or whatever, your bosses. Whatever happened to these guys? Because these guys are pretty interesting characters that pretty much follow you through the whole journey.
They're still plugging along. They're still doing their thing. The characters are a little bit of a blend of various people every now and then. So, but yeah, they're still cruising. I think I said at the end of the book, what happens to people, and I say, some of them are still working, some of them aren't. And I don't know. It's tough being on the road, honestly, for decades. And so some people now, they try and get gigs where they're not touring all the time. So
now with STP, you did spend a lot of time with these guys. And one thing I kept thinking in my mind as I'm reading it, and I wanted to know, and I want to ask you this, if it ever crossed your mind, did you think that Scott was not going to live a long life?
It's a tough question. And to be really honest, it's, yeah, I didn't think he would. And I never saw him do any drugs. Mm-hmm. But it was just a lifestyle I knew that he was living. Or have lived anyway. And it's an odd feeling when you have a guy that you kind of get to know, you're just waiting. So I've been doing quite a few interviews. I've been having fun with them, and they always ask the question, how did you feel when Scott died? Everybody. Mm-hmm. And you feel bad. I say to people, I feel like maybe I had become an adult. The circle of the book of this guy, this kid finding his way into quote unquote manhood. I felt maybe the circle had really come to a complete end because this guy finally packed it in. But the unfortunate part is that he has kids, and that's the part that sucks. Yeah. His kids will never get to know their dad as well as maybe I did because I was in my 20s. They have their own experiences, but it's sad. It's sad. So now they'll live hearing all the stories about their dad and how great STP is, but sure would have been nice if he was there. So yeah, that's the part that is a little rough.
A lot of different characters in rock just kind of pop up in this book randomly, and one that definitely caught my attention was Sharon Osbourne. So a lot of people say, she's ruthless, and you got to see a little glimpse of that, right, with Limp Bizkit? Yeah,
so I've had a couple of female journalists, and they tell me how much they like my respect for Sharon. And I do. I have a really huge amount of respect for her. She's a tough lady, man, and I love Ozzy, and there's no way Ozzy would be here right now if it wasn't for her. And she's a good mom, and she's a cool lady. And so, yeah, there was one part where it was Fred Durst, and she just pulled the plug on him on the stage, and she didn't give a shit. She didn't care at all. Like nothing. This is my show, honey. She's tough. And there's a character in the book, I call him the ultimate roadie, and I named him Rigger Steve.
Yeah.
And when he did pass away, Sharon took his dog, and she took care of it until his family could come and collect the dog. And, you could say, oh, well, big deal. But no, that's a pretty big deal. Why would you need to stick your neck out and do stuff like that? You don't. And so it really speaks volumes about, I think, how cool she is and how the toughest of people can also be so nurturing and kind. And she was super nice to me. She always was very polite and very, very nice to me.
That's awesome. So now toward the end of the book, you get on the Glam Slam Metal Jam tour, right? And Poison.
That's absolutely right.
So you get to reconnect with your bagel-eating buddy, CC DeVille.
That's totally true. You're on it. That is right, yes. So I'm a big fan of CC too, and talking the book, we definitely built a friendship, and people seem to really like that, CC's character in the book, and I tried to make him a human, And even though everybody is human, I made a lot of effort into making him just a person.
Right.
And he's a cool cat, man. He's a really good guy. For real.
Yeah, I can see that you guys definitely had a connection. Now, with this tour, I know the pay wasn't so hot and the budgets were tight. And what we got to remind the listeners is that, this is 2001. So basically, glam bands are kind of coming back out of the shadows of grunge from the 90s. So it kind of makes sense that, their budgets really weren't there, but at least they were to the point where they could do it again,
Yeah, no, they didn't pay a lot. It was my worst paying tour. I make it pretty clear in the book, but they were fun bands, man, and I say it clearly. I say at the beginning, I shave my head every day against the long hairs, and this crappy music I was stuck listening to, and wah, wah, wah. But then a few shows in, I was kind of like, woohoo!
Party! So now,
party! One thing fun. I mean, if you're there to see Led Zeppelin, it's the wrong show.
Right.
But if you're there to have a really good time, it's an absolute ideal place to be. It's fun. And what was nice about Poison specifically is that's how they looked at it too. They all did. They were there. This is fun music. They also care about the fun aspect of it all. And that's kind of nice. That's a little different. You're not watching Joe Satriani on stage. You're getting drunk and having a good time.
One thing that I thought was interesting is you said that Brett and Cece were pretty much only together on stage. Was there some kind of tension there, do you think? Or what was the story there?
Never felt any tension. They just never hung out with each other, ever. Ever. So I never even saw them interact, ever.
Wow, that's interesting. Another person that comes up in the book just briefly is Kevin DuBrow from Quiet Riot, and a lot of stories out there that this guy, has a big mouth, he has an attitude, and that kind of brought down Quiet Riot's success. That's what some people think. I actually kind of agree with it as well. You got a little taste of his attitude, right?
A little bit. So it's really funny. I did an article the other day, or an interview the other day for the Jewish Journal.
Okay.
And the guy's like, and he brings up Kevin DuBrow. I'm like, yeah. He goes, he's the only Jewish guy that you mentioned, and you didn't go along with him. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, I didn't know the guy was Jew.
I didn't either.
I didn't know you were going to ask me that, Darren. And so well, how religious was he, bro? And the guy's kind of like, well, I don't know. Well, you get it together and you get back to me. But, yeah, I'm chatting to the guy. We're going to be touring for a while, so you start talking to people over dinner. And I said to him, hey, I didn't know that Randy Rhoads started Quiet Riot. That's pretty cool. And he was like, yeah, man, he did for sure. He was totally nice, like totally normal. We had a normal conversation. Anyway, the guy gets up on the stage, and he comes out and he goes, you know what's amazing? The guys that work for our band, man, they don't even know that Randy Rhoads started it. And I'm looking like, is this fucking guy talking about me? And I got really mad. I'm like, well, let's see about this fucking band picking up their own crap and taking it off the stage, because it ain't going to be me. And so that was my big beef with him. And I said it the other day, I don't know. I mean, you say certain things to get the audience going.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just something along those lines. And it's not like I flicked the guy off every day or whatever. I just didn't talk to him again because I thought he was a dick. I thought that was not cool. But the rest of the dudes were really nice. Rudy was a cool guy.
Nice.
Frankie was great. So they kind of made up for him being, I'm going to say a douchebag. But the guy's dead, so it's a little bit mean.
Yeah, Yeah, he's a great vocalist. Rest in peace to Kevin and Frankie. But the stories are out there that he was he could have a little chip on his shoulder occasionally. So
he was a little tough to me, and I was a little butthurt that day because I'm like, I'm some new kid, and I was only 23. A question like that's not that out of left field. Randy Rhoads started. He absolutely did. Wow. So what was Randy like? Well, that's where it would have gone.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a little But again, Frankie, it's so sad he passed away so young. He was such a nice guy. So
I've heard that from many people. One question that kind of came to me as I'm reading this is there's all this kind of old school rock and roll debauchery through the whole book, really. And my question to you is, do you think you were kind of experiencing the last wave of that kind of stuff?
That's an interesting question. I don't know, because I don't tour anymore. But I know a lot of stuff stopped. I mean, you can't get people into shows anymore. You have to buy tickets and stuff. And I think a lot of it has stopped. Yeah, I mean, these tours now, it's hard to make a buck in music, so they just have mega bands on the same list. I don't know. I kind of feel in a way, yeah, they did. But I'm touring, outside of Poison. All of the rest of these bands, and Guns N' Roses too, but the Stone Temple Pilots audience, it was that era, real tight of that few years. So if you like music from 96 to 2000, I toured with everybody. Yeah. And that definitely changed. The music now is so very different from, what you and I like. But.
Yeah. One thing that came to mind, too, is when you think of what goes on today, and I understand why bands do it, but, obviously we're in a more PC culture. The whole thing's gotten very corporate. There's all these meet and greets. People pay to get backstage. So basically you're getting people that have money, right? That they're the only ones that are getting back there. So it's definitely, it's a different dynamic.
It's stale.
Yeah, for sure.
Stale. It's no fun. And I say that, getting backstage is only so interesting. The show's supposed to be seen from the front of the stage.
That's true.
If you really wanted to get into the front of house, then you're really styling. But I think more and more it is true. The corporate veil has succeeded to take over a lot of the fun in music.
Definitely. Well, man, hey, this has been a great conversation about the book. Where can people pick it up? Amazon, is that the best place? Or?
Yeah, Amazon. I'm working on a audio book every day here. I hope to have it done in the next couple of weeks. And might be weaving in a song I wrote with Dizzy, actually, like a decade ago. So
sweet.
That could be a little bit. Yeah, it could be cool. So we'll see. He said okay. We'll see if he finishes it. But we've got the rest in here that I've had it for a while. And I've written a bit of music here, so it doesn't suck.
Nice.
It's not terrible. Dizzy's a genius, so there you go.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that I read this. I'll be honest, I haven't read a book in a long time, and once I read this, it was kind of like the floodgates open, and I've read some other books since, so thanks for getting me reading again, Joel.
No problem. Literacy for the masses. Who would have known it would have come from glam rock guys?
Metalheads are not dumb.
If you can't read, though, don't worry. Audiobook is coming soon.
Nice. All right, brother. This is a great conversation. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate your time very much.
Yep. Take care, Joel. Well, that was a great conversation with Joel. He's a funny guy, and his book is a great read, so check it out. Another thing that's pretty great is the 80s Glam Metalcast, so hit subscribe. Lots of cool stuff's on the way. Rock on!